Welcome back to the Maven Show. This is your host Rohit. Today we have Paul Slack, the founder and CEO of Vendor Digital and Demand Generation Specialist. Thank you, Paul, for getting into the show.
Hey, Rohit, really excited to be here today. Thanks for having me.
We would love to have you in to talk about social media, talk about your agency, talk about the leveraging social media for the brand awareness and so on. So, would you like to tell something about yourself first, how you got started, and how is your agency going, and how you're about to go in future?
So, believe it or not, we're actually celebrating our 22nd year in digital marketing, which quite a long time ago. I actually got my start back in the 90s as an old sales guy, and then as the internet was becoming a thing, I kind of shifted into marketing. I won't go into all that story, but really, it was a B2B sales guy, and saw that around 2000 that the internet was going to be a really important thing for B2B companies, and that they hadn't quite figured out how to leverage the internet. And so I started my first agency in 2000 to just help B2B companies figure out, how do you capture attention with the internet? And Rohit, you're going to laugh about this, but back in 2000, when I would talk to business leaders of B2B companies, and I'd say, you've got to be on the internet. This is really an important thing. They would look at me like, you're crazy. I don't need a website. I've got a sales force. I'm in great shape. I go to all the right trade shows. I know all of our accounts. We really don't need a website. Well, fast forward to 2022, and of course everybody knows they need a website today. But we're still working with B2B companies, really helping them generate demand for their business and really help move customers through the funnel.
How was the journey so far since like from nowhere to a lot? It's a lot. Like from no websites for each of them, like where there was no mindset of having something or getting into
Right.
online and just shifting everything towards the website or everything online.
What's crazy about that is, so back then, I was saying you need to have a website, you need to be online. And they were like, well, I don't know that I do. And I'd have to convince them that obviously this is a place to go and get in front of customers. And that's how we got started, primarily doing search engine optimization back in 2000, because as a B2B company, that was really all you could do to get attention, because there really weren't a lot of options on the internet back then. But then as we were helping companies, build websites and optimize them for search engines, and this is another funny story. When we were optimizing for search engines in 2000, it was to rank well on Yahoo, Alta Vista, and Lycos. I mean, Google wasn't even a household name back then. And so the world has changed a lot, but we would help companies rank well in search engines. And then they would call us and say, hey, that's awesome. I went and did a search on Yahoo, and I saw that we're number one or on the first page of the search results, but we're not getting any leads. It's not helping us grow our business. And so we would go look at their website and go, well, you're telling a terrible story. Your website's awful. You're not helping customers do anything. You need to improve your usability. You need to improve your messaging. And so we got involved in that just as a way to help them get more out of the value we were generating through good rankings. And then, of course, fast forward after search engine optimization, then there was paid search. And then obviously here we are today with social media and things like that. And, a lot of people think about Vendy Digital as a B2B social agency. We're really a B2B demand agency. And what's funny, Rohit, is that a lot of the same conversations we're having today are similar to what we had back in 2000, except today we're saying, hey, B2B company, you've got to be in social media. You've got to be on LinkedIn. You've got to be on Facebook and all these different channels. And oftentimes they look at us like, you're crazy. Why do I need to be on LinkedIn? That's a waste of time. But the reality is, if we're going to create demand and capture demand with our buyers, we've got to go where they go. And they're flocking to sites like LinkedIn today to stay informed and to connect with their peers and really learn about things that they can't learn about on their own. And so it's a really important place for B2B companies to be spending their time.
So your agency, is it full service or you are specialized in just B2B social or SEO?
So we're a full service B2B digital agency. So most of what we do we're help people think through their strategy, because most of our clients as B2B companies are very focused on what I would call traditional things. So they're still running trade shows and events, and they're going to events, and they're still very sales led, meaning
Yeah.
their sales reps are out there making 100 calls a day or whatever the case may be, and they really don't get digital. So we come in and we help them think through, what does that buyer journey look like on digital, and how can they create and capture demand? So we help with strategy, and then we help them by running campaigns to get their message in front of their target audience. And then we work them through a process that we call buyer enablement, that just helps their buyers kind of move through the funnel and keep our clients top of mind. And so that means we're helping them with content. That means we're running campaigns for them. That means we're helping them think through their marketing tech stack. We're also helping them with marketing automation and email marketing and things like that. So, we're a small shop. We only have 11 full-time employees. We work with a lot of freelancers. And so really our job is to come in more as the strategist or the quarterback, and then bring in the right tools or partners that are going to help them accomplish what they're trying to accomplish.
And even trade shows and events cost a lot more and even expensive as comparison to digital ads and so a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, one of the things we've been telling our customers about trade shows, because they still feel very much like they've got to go to trade shows, what I'm telling them is, don't buy the booth. Don't buy the booth. Use that money for digital, and we can spend it wisely and get you in front of the right customers. But absolutely go to those trade shows, but just don't have a booth. But bring a camera and go interview customers and prospects and create content that you can then repurpose and share on your website, on your YouTube channel, on social channels, and things like that. So trade shows in and of themselves aren't bad as a tactic to build content and build relationships, but they're certainly not a good go-to-market strategy anymore. Certainly,
Yeah.
buying a booth and paying $100,000 to show up and have a booth, that's kind of silly in today's world.
What do you mean by B2B marketing, and how do you get into, like, how do you get it done in the right way possible?
B2B marketing is an interesting thing, especially because the world has changed a lot, even since 2000. I mentioned earlier, I'm an old sales guy, and back in the 90s, we were responsible as a salesperson in B2B to generate demand. So it wasn't on marketing's shoulders to generate demand. And quite frankly, this is before the internet. And so customers didn't have access to information like they have today. And so it really was on the sales rep's shoulders to go create demand. And by creating demand, I mean getting in front of a customer or prospect that doesn't know that you exist or the problem that you can solve, and making them aware that you exist and aware of the problem you can solve. So that was on sales reps. We would smile and dial, take people to lunch, do whatever we could do to get in front of customers and help them know that we exist. Well, now in today's world, what we're finding out is that customers and prospects are pushing off that conversation with a sales rep until the very last minute. In fact, Gartner did a recent study where they showed that a customer is literally 80% through the sales journey before they even talk to sales. To use it's football season here in the United States right now, American football. And to use an analogy, that, if you think about a football field, there's 100 yards on that football field. That means the customer's all the way on the 20-yard line, getting ready to score a touchdown before they want to talk to a sales rep. And so we have to think about, what are we going to do from the 1-yard line on their side of the field all the way to the 20-yard line on our side of the field? That's really marketing's job today, because they don't want to talk to sales. And so when back in the 90s, they did, because they didn't have access to information. But today we all have ubiquitous access to information. It's at our fingertips. And so they don't need to talk to sales until the very end. And so they're waiting till the very end. And so marketing needs to come in and figure out, how do I get in front of potential customers? How do I get their attention, and how do I hold their attention? And that's really what B2B marketing is all about. It's understanding who our customer is, finding out the places where they're going to learn, and providing information that's going to help them along their journey.
What you would like to say about the demand generation and its framework? You are specialized in framework of demand generation. So how you would like to say about that?
That's great. So we actually have developed a demand generation framework, and it's funny because we started developing this when we got started 20 years ago. We just didn't call it demand generation then. That's the term that we use today to talk about how to get in front of the right customers and move them through a journey. But we do have this framework that we've been building out for the last 22 years that really has 4 pillars to it. So the first pillar when you're trying to implement demand generation is always about planning. So we have to start with understanding who is our ideal customer, right? So it's not try to sell to everybody. We want to sell to those customers, or let me say it this way. We don't want to market to everybody. We want to market to the customers that we can serve the very best. Those are the ones that are going to resonate with our marketing message the most. So, when you hear the term ideal customer profile, what we're really trying to say is who is that 20% of your customers that absolutely love everything that you do, that you can really move the needle for them. You need to identify them in the planning phase. And once you figure that out, the next thing you need to do is go figure out what are the messages that are going to resonate with them. So what words and things can you say to them that are going to get them excited about the problems that you can solve for them? And that's what we mean by planning. So the first pillar is planning. The second pillar is, now that we know who our customer is, we need to go what we call activate your audience. So now we know who your customer is. Let's go figure out where they go and hang out online. What websites are they going to? What are those watering holes that they're going to learn and stay informed about their industry and learn different ways to solve problems that they're dealing with internally? That's what we mean by activate your audience. We need to understand those places, those channels, those websites, which, obviously could be social channels. It could be Google, it could be influencers, it could be coming on podcasts like your podcast, The Maven Show, right? These are the places where customers go to learn. We want to make sure we've identified those and that we have plans to get in front of our customers in those watering holes, if you will. So that's the second pillar, activate your audience. The third pillar is establish authority, and the best place to do that in our mind, Rohit, is to do that on your website. So, we start with understanding who our customer is. That's the first step. Step two is activate our audience by go hanging out where they like to hang out. But the goal of that activate your audience pillar is to ultimately get people to your website, because on your website, that's where you're going to establish authority and also establish empathy. And what I mean by that is you're going to communicate very well on your website. Hey, we're qualified to solve your problem, but not only are we qualified to solve your problem, we want to solve your problem. We have empathy, and we've even come up with a plan forward. We've made it super easy for you to work with us and have us solve your problem. So that's that third pillar of our demand gen framework, is establish authority. And then the final pillar is to stay top of mind, or to nurture relationships, because in the B2B world, which is the world we play in, we're dealing with long sales cycles, sales by committee. Most people don't come to your website and buy now in the B2B world. They come to your website and learn, and they come back and they come back, and eventually they'll fill out a form. And so we've got to execute strategies after they've been to your website that are going to keep you top of mind. And so when we work with clients, what we do is work them through those four pillars that start with planning, and then how do we activate your audience? How do we nurture or establish authority on your website? And then ultimately, how are we going to nurture relationships and keep you top of mind? And when you build a plan around those four pillars, what we found is that you really can win in the digital space.
And how you would like to explain regarding the content marketing?
So content marketing, so that was the framework I just walked you through, and that works really well. But the fuel that makes demand generation go is really content, because if you don't have anything useful to say to your customer, you can have the best framework in the world and nobody's going to ever do anything. So when you go and activate your audience, you're hanging out where they're hanging out, you better have something useful to say. And in my world, one of the great things I love about B2B marketing is that all of my clients trying to reach their customers are all struggling with an issue. They wouldn't, a business has a problem because they can't solve it on their own. And so our clients have solutions to customer problems. And so what we need to do from a content marketing perspective is really understand what are the problems that our customers are trying to solve, and what's our point of view on how to solve those problems. And so we work with our clients and coach them on thinking about, hey, when you're writing content to reach and get your customer excited about your business, be thinking about communicating to them what's wrong in their business, why that thing that's wrong in their business is happening, what you would do to fix it if they were to hire you to fix it, and then evidence or proof, what use cases or testimonials or things that you can show that, hey, your idea really will work. And when you build a content strategy around, solving problems for customers and really giving it away, making it easy, educating and informing your potential buyer. That's how you can activate your audience and get them excited, because you're going to be out there where they're hanging out. You're going to be sharing information that's going to be helpful to them. They're going to go, oh my gosh, that's a really great idea. And when you do that, you're creating reciprocity, because they're seeing content from you and they're going, wow, that was useful. And you're also establishing trust. And then ultimately, they're going to come to your website to read the full story. And that's where your content can even do a bigger job of communicating, hey, these are the steps, these are the processes, this is how you can solve your problem with us. And so you absolutely cannot execute demand generation today without having a good, solid content marketing strategy. And one other point to that I just want to share is, when you're developing your content strategy, it's really important to think about what we call content pillars, Rohit, which is, what are the 3 to 5 stakes in the ground that you want to put about your business, or that you want to talk about rather, as it relates to your business, because all of your content needs to center around these, what we call content pillars. Like, for example, at Vindy, our content pillars are demand generation, social selling, B2B social media marketing. Those are examples of our pillars. And so everything that we write is always tied to those pillars. The reason why that's so important is that we have this phrase, marketing is an exercise in memorization. If you try to talk about too many things or write about too many things in your content marketing strategy, you're going to ultimately water down your message, and your audience is going to be confused about what it is that you can do for them. But if you focus all the things that you write about or talk about in 3 to 5 pillars, and that's all you write or talk about, then pretty quickly your customers are going to go, oh, that's the B2B marketing guy. When I need help with B2B marketing, I'm going to reach out to them because they can help with that. And so that's why you want to have 3 to 5 content pillars. And then the next key part of that is, once you figure that out, write long form content, meaning blogs or things like that, 1,000+ word types of content that live on your website. Then repurpose that content by lifting key points, and that becomes your social media content strategy. So you start with your pillars, you write really great content around those pillars. Those become like blogs, for example, or YouTube videos, or many different ways you can express long form content. But then you lift key components of that, and that becomes your social media content that you distribute in social media.
And lastly, how you would like to explain like how to leverage the social media for brand awareness?
Yeah, that's great. And that ties right into what we were just talking about. So great segue there. So, I think a lot of companies get, I need to create demand, I need to generate content, but they're still, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, they're still going, well, wait a minute, why do I need to be on LinkedIn? Why do I need to be on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, you name it? Why do I need to be on those platforms? The reality is, it goes back to activate your audience. Your audience is there. So we have to be there. But the thing about social media is, the number one goal is activate your audience. And so we want to be there, and we want to deliver value and information where they're hanging out. And so social media is a different channel than like search. If you think about search engines like Google, the intent of the user is to go to Google, type in some key phrases, find websites that are relevant to that key phrase, and then bounce off of Google to another website. The reality is, in social media, that's not why people go to social media. They don't go to social media to bounce from Twitter to another website, or to bounce from Instagram to another website, LinkedIn to another website. They're there to scroll. They're there to learn and stay on the platform. A big mistake that B2B companies make with their social media is they're trying to use it as kind of a direct response. They want to run a piece of content on a social platform, and then they're hoping that that person every single time is going to click off over to their website. That's not what's going to happen. Yes, it does happen a little bit, but your primary goal needs to be to educate and inform on the channel. And so deliver the value on the channel. So I go back to those long form articles I was talking about earlier, maybe a blog on content marketing, let's say if it was Vindy Digital, and we've got this 1,000-word blog. Well, there's lots of tips and ideas that are in that blog that we could go and deliver almost a mini blog, if you will, as a post on LinkedIn. That way, when somebody scrolls and sees our content, they get the whole essence of what we're trying to communicate. We deliver value to them right in the feed. They don't have to click to our website to get the value. They're getting the value right there in the feed. And what happens when we do that the right way is we're building awareness, we're building trust, we're building authority. Our customers are like, man, these guys are smart. They really get it. And when they're ready to buy, when they're ready to learn more, that's when they're going to come over to our website. That is the real key to B2B social media today.
Do you recommend bots or bots, engagement bots and bots?
So I'm not a big fan of those things. I'm absolutely and there's different strategies and different schools of thought. So my focus and what we recommend to clients is that, you've really got, especially when we're talking about social media here, there's two avenues to get in front of your customer. One is creating really remarkable content and making it available on your company page, and then amplifying that content with paid ads. A lot of people think that paid social is expensive. The reality is, if you do it right, it's some of the best advertising you can possibly do today because of the incredible targeting that we can do on social media today. So that's one avenue, is really write remarkable content, get it out there on social, and then amplify it with paid. But then the other component is leverage your employees. So get all of your employees and really get them excited about becoming brand ambassadors in social media and sharing your content. And if you'll do those things, then you really don't need to leverage bots. And I will tell you, early on in the early days, I'm always trying something new if I can. But in the early days when bots first came out, I actually tried them on LinkedIn for a while, and I actually got my account locked down twice and almost lost 10 years worth of community building and networking and all that, because they said I was violating their terms and conditions. And from that moment on, I swore to LinkedIn, and I've kind of made the pivot here internally that we're not going to use those just because we're concerned about having our accounts locked down or any of the clients that we work with. So that's always the challenge, especially on a site like LinkedIn where they're so anti-bot these days.
And LinkedIn is the best source for the B2B, so we cannot mess with that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. B2B, I'm sorry, LinkedIn right now is it for B2B. Believe it or not, though, you're gonna laugh when I tell you this, but I think TikTok is heading in the right direction. I think as more and more people are discovering TikTok as a channel to spend time, and I wouldn't have said this a year ago, Rohit, but I am saying it now. I'm seeing more B2B content on TikTok. I'm seeing more people flocking to TikTok just to stay aware, and I can see that being an important channel down the road. I'm not ready to say bet your farm in 2023 on that. LinkedIn is still the 800-pound gorilla, but that's a reminder that we should always be leveraging the channel that's got us in front of our customers the best, but we should always be testing new things as well. When we test new channels, it gives us an opportunity to get a leading edge, get ahead of, I've been on LinkedIn since about 2007, maybe even earlier than that. And so, I'm a big LinkedIn proponent, but at the same time, we need to be trying new things because 10 years from now, LinkedIn may not be what it is. In fact, I'm going to go down a rabbit trail here for a second, but Google just made a huge announcement about their algorithm change end of August called the Google Helpful Content Update. And that whole update, that algorithmic update, was all about them fighting spam in their search results. And the reason that they're concerned about it, believe it or not, the fastest growing search engine right now, not the largest, but the fastest growing search engine is actually TikTok. People are using TikTok like a search engine. Hey, I want to learn a recipe on how to make a mojito. I want to learn how to bake chicken or whatever. They're using TikTok as a search engine today, and that's got Google scared to death because 10 years from now, Google may be something in our past, and things like TikTok may be our future. You never know. So it's important to always be testing.
For sure, for sure. And let's say someone is getting started with social media. What do you suggest? Should they be getting started with each of the platform, or they should be focusing on just one or so?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think, if you're just getting started in social media, and this is true if you're B2B or B2C, I would pick one or two platforms that you really are convinced that your buyers are there. So you've gone through the plan, you understand who your ideal customer is, and you've gone to that second step of activating your audience, and you're analyzing where are my customers hanging out, and you believe they're on LinkedIn or you believe they're on Twitter or Facebook or wherever. Pick one or two and double down. Really invest the time. And here's a key point: don't give up too early. A lot of people will try it for 90 days and go, that didn't work. The reality is stay committed to it, learn, get really good at it. And then once you figure that out, then look at adding another channel.
Amazing, Bob. Any best tips you have for the for someone is getting started into social media, brand awareness, and so on?
I think always start at the beginning, right? So if you're just now thinking about digital marketing, just now thinking about demand generation, the most important thing I can impress on you is understand your customer. Who do you serve the absolute best? Who are the customers that love you, that whatever you're selling, they're buying and they're loving it? Start there. Do not try to sell to everybody. Sell to those customers that you serve best. One of the great things that the internet has brought to the table is we can sell to very small niche audiences and have a great successful business. And then rather than be product focused, I would suggest that you are just incredibly focused on solving problems for your customer. Let your product development be understanding problems that your customers have and building a solution to those problems, and then build it in public. That's the great thing about social media. While you're learning about your customer, while you're learning about their problems, while you're learning about ways to solve their problems, do all that online, do all that very open and public, and you're going to get a very interested audience, and that's going to serve you well over the long haul.
Thanks, Bob, for sharing this bunch of insights. And thank you so much for getting into the show.
Yeah, you bet. Excited to be here. It was a lot of fun.